Obviously, we held this conference. We want to provide you with information that's going to be helpful to you. We also want to make sure that we provide support, and we talked about that in different sessions today, and some of that comes from each other, as we've talked about. We want you to have a sense of a positive mindset, hope, inspiration, and that's what we hope to bring to you this evening. I want to start by introducing members of our board, and that way you can get to know a little bit about them. Right now, our board is completely volunteer, all right? So everybody on this board is doing this out of their passion and dedication to this cause. You're going to see that members of this board are really committed and have been touched by this disease. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call each member of the board, and I'm going to ask them to stand when I call on them, and just very briefly say a word or two about themselves and why they're a part of this organization and what inspires them, okay, to do what they do. So, first, here we are. And you see actually David Robertson back here, our founder, right? And he's not here with us tonight, but he's really a very special member of our board. So I want to start by acknowledging our medical and scientific specialists that give their time to the board. And they are in a special position on the board as a medical and or scientific specialist to provide us with that level of expertise. And they too volunteer their time. So we'll start with David Robertson. David Robertson is now a board member emeritus. He is a founding board member, much beloved clinician. When I tell you, anybody who meets him, he's just what you would consider a true Southern gentleman, a wonderful man with a very special dedication and interest in MSA, and a great deal of expertise. An author of many research articles. He's been a host of many of our past patient conferences. He's the past chair of our scientific advisory board. He recently retired from his position at Vanderbilt University. There was a lovely dedication to him and a lovely, very worthwhile educational symposium that was in his honor as well in May out of Vanderbilt. Another of our members, board member emeritus, who's not here with us tonight, is Tom Cholimsky. He's been a board member since 2001. He just moved to the emeritus status this year. Another loved doctor, clinician with expertise in MSA, another who has hosted many of our past conferences. And he has a very special interest in educating other medical professionals about MSA. He's organized a number of CME events, and we've all talked about just how important this is in helping the diagnosis, so he's also very dedicated. And up next, who is with us tonight, Dr. Daniel Clausen, a board member from Vanderbilt University. Daniel, you want to wave and say hi? And hold on a second, Jim. Okay, we got someone else. Good.
Hey, good to see you. So that's me on the photo. So I'm a neurologist. I'm at Vanderbilt University. David Robertson was my mentor and hero, so it's an honor for me to follow his footsteps and be a part of this organization. And that's my wife's grandmother, who was diagnosed with MSA in 2015. And she told me to tell you all, you just tell them to keep on keeping on. So that's my words for you.
Thank you. Vic Corona, another of our board members. Is Vic in the room? I know he's here. He was flying in today, so he may not be here yet, but you guys will get a chance to actually meet him tomorrow, and he's one of tomorrow's speakers. You see that he is really very touched by this disease and this organization and the commitment. He relays personal experience when he was a fellow, and the level of compassion and dedication from a patient. And in her final words said, "Make sure Dr. K gets my brain." and how it touched him, how heartbroken he was he couldn't do more. So he wants to commit to a promise, right, to find a cure and to commit to dedicating his time and his efforts to the MSA community. Why? For my patients and their caregivers, because it feels right, right? And he considers it a privilege. And his advice, a disease, especially a rare one, relies on selfless collaboration between patients, advocates, clinicians, and scientists. And I love how he ends his thought. Together, we can cure MSA. So you'll get to meet him tomorrow. Okay. So now our at-large board members. So we're going to go through some different categories of members of our board. And with this group, we are going to start with Doc Kellerman. Where's Larry?
Right there, yeah.
Thank you very much. I became a rare disease warrior early in the process. It took 5 years to find out what the rare disease was. As you can see, it was a palindrome, a 3:13:13 day for diagnosis, about 3:13 in the afternoon. Lost her on February 4th, 2016. She was confirmed an MSA cerebellar upon diagnosis upon autopsy by the New York University Langone Medical Center. Her advice to others was it takes a village to care for an MSA patient. And as I say below, I advocate for support of others on an MSA jury, and I also want to support those researchers who are bent on beating the beast. All right? Thank you.
Next up, Steve Klisares. I believe he's over here.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Klisares. This is my wife, Paula. And that was a few years ago, pre-MSA, of us dancing at a wedding. As the slide says, she was diagnosed with early onset at age 46, or actually symptoms at 46, and then took 3 years at Mayo Clinic. She was diagnosed with MSA cerebellum, and at age 56, which was in 2012, she passed away. I'm involved because having been on the same journey that you're on, I understand MSA patients and caregivers need help. Our family, unfortunately, has been through a lot of disease. My dad had Parkinson's, my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's, a sister with breast cancer, a brother with kidney cancer, and I see a tremendous difference between the support for common diseases compared to what we go through in a rare disease. So I'm involved because I understand this community needs help, and who better to help than those who have gone through the same as you are going through now. My advice is try and get ahead of this thing and be ahead of it as much as you can. Proactively plan, be your own advocate, and that will pay dividends. So I'm honored to be here with you, and we want to help you through this journey.
Thank you, Steve. Dr. Allison Mayu.
I became aware of this group when my brother was starting to have symptoms, and I guess he started having symptoms when he was about 44, going back, but I was studying for my board review for internal medicine. We have to take our boards every 10 years, and I came upon one of the modules. They give a case presentation, and you have to come up with the diagnosis, and the answer was MSA, and I felt like I was reading, man, this sounds like Hal. And but I don't even remember the lecture in medical school. I don't know about Dr. Clausen, but do you remember it? But maybe on a list. But at any rate, I happen to live. My brother lived in Baton Rouge, and I'm from Louisiana, but I live in Wisconsin. And just so happened the coalition had their meeting in Milwaukee that year in 2013 when Hal was diagnosed. And I learned so much, and I can remember walking in, the first person I saw was Vera James, who welcomed me so warmly. And I think she's sitting back there somewhere. and just met so many neat people, and I'll never forget meeting Larry that meeting, and Judy was there, and Carol leading the patient advocate, patient caregiver conference breakout session, and knowing I just had to absorb that information and bring that back to my family, and I can tell you that that was made a world of difference to our family. This group, if you've not been aware of it or been familiar with the MSA Coalition, is the best friends you'll ever have. We ran into so many difficulties as caregivers with the Medicare fight and the hospice fight and insurance fight, and how are we going to pay for this? And I mean, Hal was relatively young with 2 young boys, and brain donation and all these things, and I figured, you know, we went through this, and Hal's desire was A, donate his brain, which we were able to do, so that they can study this thing and find a cure, and B, how can we use our experience to help this journey that you all are going through right now with trying to navigate through all these things. I wasn't here at the meeting last year because I was walking the Camino in his memory, so I had the t-shirt on this morning. But our advice, our family's advice, is to stay involved and be an advocate as patients and family members, because it really does. I mean, it takes a village, it takes a team. You've heard that theme over and over and over again, and it is so true. There's not anything truer in this disease. And our goal is to care for the MSA patients and families and to accompany them on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Neil Versel.
Over here. I'm going to step forward because I saw the video streaming and saw the back of people's heads. Some of the board members. So, I serve on the board dedicated to my dad, Mark, who died in 2012 at the age of 68. So, not old, but older than many of the others. So. My family had never heard of MSA, just like many of yours had never heard of MSA at the time of diagnosis. We didn't know about the MSA Coalition or really any resources at all for MSA families until really the very end. And I think we ended up asking people to make donations in his memory to the Michael J. Fox Foundation because we really didn't know about the MSA Coalition. I found out about it a lot more after he died. I just felt like, can't let this go, can't let his death be in vain. I just felt like we need to do something. I also saw that he was originally misdiagnosed with Parkinson's like so many others, but he was also mistreated at a hospital that didn't know anything about MSA in his last month alive, and really took 3 weeks in intensive care when he was first admitted with a urinary tract infection, which became pneumonia, for the infectious disease specialist to admit that he had never heard of MSA. So we've realized at that point that you need to advocate for your loved ones. You need to advocate for yourself when you are a patient. This shouldn't happen to people. We can't control what we get, but we can have a say in how we're treated as patients. And I think that I think having this community has really helped me cope with the loss. It's been 6 years, but of course you really never get over the hurt. And I just want others to be aware of what MSA is all about, and want everybody who's currently battling it right now to know that you are not alone. You have everybody in this room plus a greater community who's out there watching this live stream, or who's just unable to travel right now, or just couldn't be here this weekend. There is community. You are not alone. It's a small community, but it's a community that really is a community, and there's all kinds of support to be found here. So please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you, Neil. Diane Atkins is our caregiver representative and could not be with us this evening. She had to cancel her plans to join us when her husband David declined. And sadly, after a not quite 4-year battle with MSA, She lost David on September 14th of this year. So we certainly miss Diane, but to her credit, here she is putting this message together to you. She's on the phone with us, she's on the emails with us, she's reviewing things, and she is very committed. You see, she classifies multiple system atrophy as a neurological wrecking ball, right? Yeah, right. And says, I advocate for the MSA Coalition so that other people do not have to suffer from this cruel disease. The coalition is the premier advocacy organization helping patients and caregivers and funding crucial research toward a cure. So her commitment is firmly there to move on, having, again, like the rest of us, dealt with what you're dealing with right now. So we do understand. So Diane, we're thinking of you and we miss you. Thank you for your commitment. I'm sure you're probably watching. Hadley Ferguson, our patient representative. Hadley.
Hello, I'm Hadley Ferguson, and yes, I'm the patient representative, and I have to say that when I was originally diagnosed in 2013, the first thing I did was, of course, get on the internet, and what helped me the most was the MSA Coalition site. And I spent so much time reading through all the material. I shared it with my friends and family. And then when I got a call to ask if I'd consider joining the board, I was beyond honored to be able to contribute to what helped me so much. So I am appreciative for what the coalition did for me. This is my family. It helps all of us. This is why I do what I do, to keep going and live life to the fullest with my family. So thank you for allowing me to do this and work with all of you.
Thank you, Hadley. And Hadley is a wonderful contributing member of this board and a member of our conference committee that helped with this. So, and now, some other emeritus members of our board. Judy Biedenhart, who is the immediate past chair and a board member emeritus. Judy?
Well, as you can see, my husband Ned's there on the right. He was, symptoms started in 1987. He was diagnosed by our local neurologist in Columbus, Ohio in 91. Had a confirming second opinion at Vanderbilt in 1995 and passed away at the age of 61 in 2003. So the year after that, in 2004, I attended my first patient caregiver conference because it was in Ohio and I could just travel by car. And I've attended every conference since, and I always am inspired by the patients and the caregivers and the board members and everyone, you know, that has been involved. My advice to others, and if you attended one of the conference or sessions I was at today, is to have a daily dose of vitamin F, which is faith, family, and friends. And I kind of think you can take extra doses as needed. So I just learned so much the first patient caregiver conference that I decided that that's something I wanted to do. Began helping out right away, and then actually became a board member, I don't know, 2008, 2009. I don't know when I became an official board member, but I've been part of the group since 2004. And just thank you all for coming, and we can always use volunteers and backup out there, so keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. So I'm going to preface this next introduction with I have some news hot off the press. Vera James, and notice it says board member emeritus. Vera took a leave from the board. She's an active member, and when she had to care for her own parents, took a leave, and she was extended an invitation to stay on as a board member emeritus, and it was an open invitation. And today, I am very happy to say that she has returned formally as a board member emeritus. Most of you know Vera from the hotline, I'm sure.
Right.
Vera.
That's my husband, Fred. He was diagnosed in '98 with MSA after having a short diagnosis of Parkinson's for a few years. He passed away in 2003, and the first conference I ever attended was in the end of 2003 in San Diego. A few months later, Don Summers, who was the president of this group, then called and asked if he could put a support line in my house. And of course I said, sure, no problem, you know. So I did the support line from 2004 until 2016. And then I had to
Yes.
step down to take care of my folks. But my passion is for all of you. You know, I've made a lot of friends. I've lost a lot of friends. And I really love all of you. And if I could help in any way just to make you understand or, you know we're there, this is my job. So all of you are in my heart. You really are. And
Thank you, Vera. And welcome back. Okay. Leader of the pack. The executive committee. So I'm going to start with Pam Bauer, our secretary. And most of you know Pam. She's out there very actively in our social media. So Pam?
Okay, I'll just move up here a bit so I can see you
Yes,
guys.
please.
So this is my beautiful mother-in-law, Ida, who was like a second mom to me. I met my husband, Dave, here, who's with me. When I was 18 years old, I went to university, and that's where I met Dave, and then I met his mom a few months later. And she took me under her wing, and like I said, I was away at university, and she was like my second mom. So I loved her dearly, and when she started to have symptoms in about 92, 93, we had no idea what this disease was. She thought she had an inner ear problem, that's why she was losing her balance. But after a long journey, she eventually got a diagnosis in Boston. We're from Canada. She was from rural New Brunswick, Canada. 6 children. They lived in Massachusetts. They moved there in 1960. She raised her 6 children. And then they moved the family back to Canada in 1979, and because of that, I was able to meet my husband in New Brunswick. She was a wonderful, wonderful lady. When she got her diagnosis, I went online. This was in 1993, 94. And there wasn't much going on the internet at that time, and I found some support groups online. I found some people who had similar symptoms as her. She had the cerebellar ataxia. And I found people looking for information. I'm like, well, here, I've got some information. I started sharing that. And then I ended up being the moderator of a support group online that was connected with this group, which was previously called the Scheidregger MSA support group. So since about 2000, I was involved on that as the moderator. And so I've known the people at this organization since the mid-90s. So I knew Don Summers, who's the previous president. I knew Judy. I got to know Vera. And then Don Crouse and all these guys. They're just wonderful. I joined the board officially in 2013. My passion is connecting people online, giving them information, and my other passion is research. I'm also the research co-chair, research committee co-chair, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done in the past 5 or 6 years. We've been able to fund over $1.6 million in research, and this is the hope for the future. And I will say to every person here, don't give up. There's stuff on the horizon, and we're going to find that cure.
Thank you, Pam. Carol Langer, our treasurer.
Okay. So I've got to find the right place for me to stand. So, oh, hello. It's hard to be as articulate as everybody's been, so this is going to be a challenge. I, too, joined the board in 2013 in honor of my husband, Rob. He was diagnosed on March 30th of 1998, a day that I will never forget, and lived for 11 and a half years with what we thought was MSA. It turned out upon autopsy to be Lewy body disease. He died at home, which I am very proud of because we were able to do that, on October 28th, 2009, so coming up on 9 years, which seems like yesterday and forever all at the same time. I advocate because no family should ever have to go through this, and particularly never have to go through this by themselves. So it's really important that we all support each other, and that's what it's about. My advice to everybody, whether you have MSA or not, is to make memories while you can, and never take anything for granted, because we just never know what's going to happen in our lives.
Thank you, Carol. Don Crouse, our vice chair. Just come here. Oh, there you go.
So I'm a little bit unique to the board in the sense that I don't have a family member that has multiple system atrophy. I actually got involved with multiple system atrophy back in 1996. I was a young product manager and launched mitogen into the marketplace for Roberts Pharmaceuticals. Roberts and a few of the executives there, along with David Robertson, were founders of the SDS MSA support group, which is now the MSA Coalition. And through my involvement in attending the early SDS MSA support group meetings, got to know Don Summers very well, and he invited me to join the board, which I decided to do, and I've been doing it ever since. So it's been quite a long road with this group. The truth is that I get a lot of inspiration out of meeting people like you. I've met so many positive people that are dealing with adversity, and I have a rare eye disease actually that's slowly been taking my eyesight. I've lost my ability to read. I can't drive a car anymore. I had to leave my pharmaceutical job, and seeing the positivity that I've met over the years has been a real inspiration for me, and it's how I approach my life now, really trying to be a positive person and a great role model for my two daughters. So my advice is to stay positive. Don't go it alone. You're meeting a lot of great people at this meeting. Stay connected, and as Carol said, I think it's just important to cherish every moment. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. Oops, who's that? So I lost my mom to MSA. Like many of the stories you've been hearing and some of the experiences that you had, we went through a series of symptoms first, misdiagnosis, going to several places, getting the second opinions to get the confirmation. So 2004 was when that finally came in after several, as I said, several resources to try to get to the bottom of what was happening. And again, we didn't have a lot of information at that time. It was out there, but not enough. Certainly not as much as there today, and not as much as we hope to have going forward. So she was diagnosed in 2004, and we lost her on Mother's Day in 2009. A day that certainly will live on in my heart. It was a very tough day. And I guess she was so close to her mom that our comfort was, well, okay, she's gone home to her mom. You know, as a rare disease, there's a lot to be done. And my sense is if those of us who've been through it don't do it, who will? So Mom was very much a caring person. She always was helping others, and I don't want her suffering to be in vain. I'm sure that she is looking down and happy that we're carrying on her lesson that she taught us to help others. Our advice is, and I say ours because this was Mom, right? Live every day to the fullest. And she did. She really did. But it's particularly special that this conference is happening this weekend because today is Mom's birthday. So happy birthday, Mom.
Special lady.
Ah, sweet. So now you've heard about us and the board and our stories, but we want you to continue to hear about other your peers here that are also going through this journey with you and some of their experiences and their positive experiences and things that they've done.